Alrighty, so now we are moving to the part where we're going to talk about teams that got eliminated in the second round of the playoffs, also known as the conference semifinal. That is in the moving forward series episode. And oh boy, let's begin by finally talking about my team, Minnesota United, because honestly, this has been a moving forward series I've been want to do for a very long time. Not just because as I mentioned, they're one of the team that I dearly supported, but I think we can all agree that there is no MLS team this offseason has just such a dramatic turnover as what we've seen with the Loons did this offseason. And yes, there's definitely a lot of negative in terms of the turnover that they have. Losing Dave Sinclair obviously hurts. Of him going to Inter Miami, especially the fact that he took a pay cut to do so. Losing some fan favorites like Robin Lod also hurts as well, and seeing him going to the Chicago Fire also kind of is a little disappointed, but maybe understandable because he is starting to kind of age a little bit. But I think the biggest loss this offseason, you got to say, is Eric Ramsey. Departing this team, now joining West Brom, and he actually didn't win his first game in charge. I actually tried to check to see what happened in his debut with West Brom against Middlesbrough, and that was actually a pretty good game. That he actually was able to get that team from coming back down from 2-0 only to lose in the 90th minute and gave up a 90th minute goal to lose 3-2 in that game, which sounds kind of a little bit similar to what happened this season with Minnesota and the problem that they have this year in terms of holding on leads late in games or holding on of a big result late in games and giving up goals as well. But nevertheless, as I said, it's been a crazy offseason for this team. And I know there's a lot of Loons fans have said that this has been a off season of hell. I even said a couple of times that it feels like it's an off season of hell, but I feel like the more I dig in before I did this moving forward series episode and look at the current roster that this team constructed, and the fact that they did a really good job in terms of immediately decided to find the replacement for Eric Ramsey and hiring Cam Mills as the head coach of this team and promote him into that spot. I feel like this team is not in as bad of a shape as what some Loons fan has, and this might be a very cautious, optimistic kind of approach, but I'll talk about why maybe that might be the case in this moving forward series. That's so, especially when we get to the moving forward part of this team. So last season they finished with a 16-10-8 record and finished with 58 points, which is the most point that this team has ever had in their club history. But even though that is the case, they still finished fourth in the standings. It's still the highest that they finish in the standings. It's kind of disappointing to the fact that they actually finished fourth because for most of the year they were top three in the league, but unfortunately they kind of slipped up a little bit, and partially because LAFC really went on a really hot run late in the season is kind of the reason why they slipped down to fourth in the Western Conference. But hey, at least they still won the playoff series and kind of able to defeat their ultimate boogeyman in that playoff series, that is the Seattle Sounders. But they finished with a 16-10-8 record and 58 points. They scored 56 goals while allowing 39 with a plus 17 goal differential. But unfortunately, they did lose to San Diego in the second round, and that was a very tight matchup. I mean, that was a game where anything could have happened in terms of that matchup. It could have gone either way in terms of how that game is, and unfortunately, San Diego just had that one magical moment, and that was kind of the difference in terms of that game. That's always the case when you see like these tightly contested game, and you just kind of hope that Minnesota was on that the right end of a tightly contested game. But if you know anything about Minnesota sports kind of history and the curse that they have, I'm not surprised they're kind of on a wrong end once again of a closely attested kind of playoff matchup. Now, looking at the top goal scorer of this team, it is hard to believe that Tani Oloshai actually finished as the top goal scorer of this team. A guy that they eventually sold off in the summer, and there was a lot of criticism, especially from the Loon fans of the front office side to sell him in the summer. I wasn't actually one of them. I feel like it was still the right move to do. And yes, I know the issue with the way that they didn't really quite find the right replacement for him is kind of a little disappointing at the end of the day. But still, you just kind of had a sense with the money that Villarreal was offering, and with the way that Tani himself really wants to make the move. You're not gonna really hold a guy hostage in terms of really want to follow his dream and make that jump to Europe. And ever since that, Tani has really thrived during his time with Villarreal, and that $8 million dollar that of course Minnesota has, just to kind of shows you that this is kind of the beginning of how this team finally has entered the conversation of a team that can develop some good young talent and eventually sold off for a huge amount of money. But still, it kind of sucks the fact that it happened in the middle of the season, and hence this is also another example of why the league decided to switch the calendar, because once heading into after this season, and especially after that mini 2027 sprint season that they have, we will never have this issue where a team would just lose a huge part of their talent, especially on the attack in the middle of the season, because that's kind of the thing that the league want to avoid, and it's been something that a lot of teams and a lot of ownership and office have been really begging for that to happen, because it kind of sucks the fact that you lose your key players during the summer. And I know some people say, well, couldn't they do it in the winter transfer window? Well, the summer transfer window is where a lot of these big European clubs and South American clubs do their business. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why the league really wants to tilt to that calendar. But as also want to mention is the fact that that maybe could really hurt this team in a big way, because of the way that unfortunately Minnesota is one of those teams that is in an extreme cold market, that there's a lot of question how is this team gonna fare once the calendar switch and whether if they can attract the talent into this team as well. But after that, you got Anthony Marcanic finished with 9 goals, followed by Kevin Yoboa with 9 goals. I made a joke about Marcanic, the fact that it was crazy that he was outscoring his brother as well, despite the fact that he was playing in the fullback position. Like, he was pretty much the set piece king this year when it comes to goal scoring. Anthony Marcanic, where most of the goals is going to score. It's always going to be in that back post, coming off of a long throw in that is, and it's hard to believe that he scores so many goals. I mean, that even happened when I went to one of the Loons game, and I think it was the one on the 4th of July down in Dallas. The fact that he scored on a long throw in, and in some way, I'm kind of almost called it. I'm thinking, yep, this is probably going to be the moment that the long throw in will happen, and Marcanic is going to score in the back post. And lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. But after that, you got Kevin Yoboa with 9 goals, Joaquin Pereira with 6 goals, and Bongi Longwani finished with 3 goals to round up the top five in terms of the goal scoring chart. Top assist leader, you got Joaquin Pereira, unsurprisingly the top assist leader of this team. I mean, he's pretty much like the Emmanuel Reynoso kind of replacement for this team with 11 assists, even though I know Pereira, the style that he plays is a little bit different than what your traditional number 10 that Reynoso meant to this team. But after that, you got Tani Olashrey with 8 assists, Robin Lod with 6 assists, and then this is where it gets a little wacky. I don't think I've ever seen a team where, in terms of the top five assist leader, we see two center backs being up there in terms of the top five assist leader. And you think that maybe some of these center backs are probably just getting like 2 or 3 assists. No, both Michael Boxall and uh, Nicholas Romero both got 5 assists this season. Again, that just shows you a big part of the reason why they got on this board is because of the long throw in. They were there in terms of getting the primary and also the secondary assists as well. Most of the time, Michael Boxall, of course, gets the secondary assist because he's pretty much the main man in terms of doing that long throw. He's almost like a quarterback when it comes to doing the long throwing and throwing into the box and hope that someone can just kind of flick it around into the back post and score like that. I mean, yeah, I think as much as I know it's sound crazy the fact that you see a team that finished with two center backs with that many assists, but I think if you watch how Minnesota plays, and especially with the way that in some way they really bring back the lost arts of the throw in this season, I don't think there was a lot of surprise. You see the two center back ends up as the top five assist leader, and with both of them combining with 10 assists with each other. I mean, when's the last time you see a team having two center backs combining with 10 assists in a season? Best win of the season. I know a lot of people will say it's the 4-1 win against Inter Miami. And I was very tempted to put there. In fact, I actually originally was going to put that in there as well. Not just because I attended that game in person as well. And that's probably going to go down as one of the greatest day I have ever experienced as a Minnesota United fan, seeing the Loons absolutely demolish Messi and his friends as well. But at the end of the day, I'm actually going to go with the 3-1 win that they had against San Diego, because I think as much as that was a huge win against Inter Miami at home, Miami wasn't really in the best run of form in that time as well. And credit the Loons did a good job in terms of capitalizing, and the fact that I kind of had a feeling the Loons could do something special in that game, not just because it's a big crowd and such a huge moment, not just for the club but also for the state of Minnesota to host such a big name star in their backyard. But it's just the fact that the style that they play compared to what Miami biggest weakness is, it's basically something that Minnesota can easily exploit. Now, this game against San Diego that I chose as the best win of the season, I chose this mainly because this was a battle between the top spot in the Western Conference, and especially with the way that I know San Diego, their home record hasn't really been that great, but the fact that Minnesota in that game went toe to toe and really kind of almost at many times survive all the onslaught pressure that San Diego put, and then kind of able to score a couple of goals on the counter attack and also on the set piece. This game was kind of what is quintessential Minnesota United's soccer in a nutshell. This game was peak Ramsey ball in terms of how the Loons were able to pull off this win as well. And yeah, at that point, it really was kind of the peak of this team. This is when this team looked like they are absolutely mean business. They made a huge statement, not just to the Western Conference, but probably the rest of the league. The fact that this is the signature win that this team needed to really be considered to be a huge contender in the West. But unfortunately, that me, means that even though that was the peak of this team, that's when just a couple of days later they suffer probably the worst moment in club history. You also notice, like I said before, how I've always talked about when teams hit a peak in the regular season. More times or not, we have seen teams hit a peak and then it just kind of started going downhill. And this game kind of was a little bit of that, but in many ways, I mean, this was a rough loss in every imagination. And I know I usually don't pick other competition in terms of the worst loss of the season, but I just have to go with this 2-1 loss against Austin. And to this day, I think this loss is equally as painful as what we saw in the Western Conference Final in 2020 against the Seattle Sounders. The fact that that game, I was actually attended in person and I saw that moment. I mean, it was quite stunning to see what happened late in the game, and yeah, I was kind of lost words for a bit. I mean, part of me kind of is not surprised because this feels like it's a very typical Minnesota moments of endless heartbreak that this team and this state seems to always suffer when it comes to sports. But it's kind of really surreal as well, and Minnesota was heavily favored in that game against Austin, and that if they would have won this game against Austin, I'm not gonna say that means that they have a better chance to face against Nashville SC. I think when they do face against Nashville at home, that was gonna be a tough task. Either Nashville was a really good team, and we saw it in the final as well how good Nashville was when they faced against Austin, even when they were on the road. But yeah, the other thing that I think make this such a horrible loss for the Loons, besides giving up the goal in the 120 minute, that was really the best opportunity for this team to win a trophy. I mean, for a long time, I've been really hoping eventually this team wins a trophy. This team has always been considered to be one of the more consistent team in the league ever since, if you ignore what happened in the first two seasons, that is. But they just always came so close in terms of finally winning silverware. And like I said, this spirited U.S. Open Cup run that they have, I thought this was probably the chance to do so, and the fact that it didn't happen and it ended in such a heartbreaking fashion, it kind of in some way affected the team too, because the very next game you could also argue that might be also considered the worst loss of the season, at least in the regular season, that is, of them losing 3-0 to the Chicago Fire at home. Now, when it comes to average attendance, 19,247. That's good for 23rd in the league. The attendance did go down a little bit compared to last season, and I wouldn't be surprised it's going to continue to go down. And as I said before, Minnesota is probably one, if not the most unfortunate team when it comes to this situation of the calendar flip from fall to spring. The attendance at Allianz Field when it gets really cold there. I mean, unless if it's a special game, when it gets really cold there, there's not going to be a pack house at Allianz as we've seen in the past. Usually, the pack house does happen during the summertime, during the more beautiful time in the Minnesota winter. But good luck trying to ask those same folks to show up in 30 degrees. And yeah, again, as much as I love the support of this team and the way that it feels like Loons fans are definitely hardcore every single game to try to show up as much as possible. this upcoming calendar switch is going to really damage the attendance. And I wouldn't be surprised if it might damage not just the attendance of them, but also a couple of these cold northern city teams that's going to have to deal with the same situation. So look at MVP of this team. I'm going to go with Joaquin Pereira. I know I want to go with Tani Oloshai, but obviously Tani is no longer on this team, so I got to pick with an existing player. So I'm going to go with Joaquin Pereira easily. Probably one of the better player, maybe the second best player. I think Tani was probably the best player for this team before he got sold off. Pereira is definitely a good second place, and again for a guy that we knew that he was gonna bring something special. We kind of saw it a little bit last season as well, but it just feels like last season he kind of struggled in terms of just trying to get himself adapt. But once he finally found his form this year, you can see it is pretty clear that we're starting to see some Reynoso kind of comparison. And as I said, I know that both of these players don't play in the same position and they don't play in the same style as well. But this is a guy that is definitely a real deal. He's the linchpin of this team, which is also why I am a little nervous. The fact that in a couple of years he is going to be sold off for a huge amount of money, because that's just kind of how this team runs in these last couple of months of them selling off pieces to other teams. Disappointment. I'm gonna go with Calvin Yoboa. I was thinking about putting Julian Gresso in there mainly because Gresso. As much as I was very excited about him coming into this team and what he can bring to the table, he kind of turns out to be a big disappointment, and a guy that really just didn't offer too much on this team. And one of the big asset that he has when it comes to his crossing, it was pretty much almost non-existent throughout the this last season, and I'm kind of surprised that I elected to bring him back for another year run. But obviously, in terms of the disappointment, it's got to be Calvin Yoboa. Even though I will say that for Yoboa, this is where it gets interesting heading into next season, and I'll mention a little bit of that again when we talk about the question in terms of the number 9 spot. When you look at his number isn't actually that bad. I mean, he's almost cracked in terms of scoring double digit goal. And it's also important to know that most of the goals that he scored this season was when he was healthy. When he wasn't scoring goals, that was because when he was dealing with these injuries throughout the season. And you just wonder whether or not these injuries kind of held him back a bit as well. So, yeah, I think that is kind of added to the factor of that. But also, I can understand why some Loons fans would say that they want more from Yeboah, especially after the departure of Tani Olashey. This was a chance for Yeboah to really prove himself that he is the guy to lead the line like he did in the beginning of the season, and it just really never happened. But again, maybe a lot of that is due to the fact that he's been kind of on and off in terms of dealing with injuries, especially with the hamstring injury throughout the season as well. So, young player to watch, I'm going to go with Mamadou Dieng, though I will give a quick shout out to Loic Mensavi and also Mamadou Kamara, two of these guys that currently plays for the second team and play for the two the that is MNUFC 2. I've seen them play a couple of times, and I can definitely see they can just test the fact that they are definitely looking to be ready to be integrated into this main team when they are given the opportunity to do so. But at the end of the day, it's got to be Mamadou Dieng as the young player to watch, mainly because again, going back to the number 9 situation, if Yoboa doesn't turns out to pan out for this team, why not throw Mamadou Dieng right into there and see if he can prove himself? And a lot of people have said that this is kind of almost like Tani Oloshai 2.0 with Mamadou Dieng. Consider, when you look at the style that they play and the physicality that both of those players are very similar. They're kind of characteristic, and both of those guys kind of come in the same background as well, coming from the USL Championship, did very well there, and seems like they're going to do the same thing in MLS as well. And while Dieng didn't really get a lot of minutes last season as well, I do have a feeling he might get more, especially if Yoboa does continue to struggle as well. Again, I'm kind of surprised not a lot of Loons fans have realized the fact that they still have this guy. I mean, I always heard a lot of Loons fans panicking about, well, if Yoboa doesn't work out, we need to sign a DP number 9. I mean, yes, ideally it would be great to see this team sign a DP number 9, but do you remember they also have kind of a Tani Olashai type of player in Mamadou Dieng waiting right around the wing that could ready be fussed into action and see how he does. So yeah, I think that might be plan we could see this season. Where if Yeboah does struggle, wouldn't be surprised if DN does get more opportunity. So what went right for this Minnesota team? Most points in club history, 58 points. That is. The Road Warrior Loons continue. So one of the things that I've been very impressed with the Loons the last couple of years is how good they've been on the road. Though I'm not surprised because with the style that they play, a more counter-attacking style, it is no surprise they're much better at on the road compared to them being at home. I mean, their home form has definitely not been great, though it is definitely a little better compared to a couple of seasons ago when it was pretty shocking the fact that they only won 3 games at all season at Allianz Field. But yeah, the Roll War Loons were among the best in the league with eight wins in total. I think that's only second in the Western Conference behind San Diego, who actually register a whopping 12 win road wins this season, and they only lost 3 times on the road, which is actually the fewest that any MLS team has this season as well. Now they did drew 6 times as well, and I can guarantee you that some of those draw that they had on the road could have easily been wins because of the some of the late goals that they conceded to draw points on the road. But still, I mean, this team with them being such a good road team, it's definitely refreshing to see that is the case. Now, if only that can translate into their home form, I would really appreciate that as well. But I guess you can't have both ways sometimes. And then of course they really reinvented the lost art of the long throw in. I'm not gonna say that they were really the one that kind of paved way back the lost arts of the long throw in because I have a feeling somebody in Europe is going to immediately throw the argument of, well, we kind of did the same thing as well before Ramsey really started this. But I do think that when it comes to MLS play, they really were the one that reinvented the lost arts of the long throw. Before, when Ramsey really focused on the long throw, we don't really see a lot of MLS team does this anymore. But it just kind of feels like with the way that Minnesota started doing it, you started seeing other team does it as well, and you also see other teams around the world started to do as well. Heck, in the Premier League, there was literally articles talking about the lost arts of the long throw and being returning to the game itself. So yeah, I'm not gonna just completely say that. You can definitely thank Minnesota and Eric Ramsey in terms of reinventing that, but he definitely had a help in hand in terms of it. And it'll also be very interesting to see whether that continue heading into this season, whether if they're gonna do the same thing as well. I do feel like they should because I do think that the long throw in it's such a dangerous weapon, especially with the way that it's almost like a makeshift set piece. I mean, we know when you have set pieces, it's always an opportunity to score, and knowing this team is the set piece king, that they're going to try to capitalize on that. And I feel like heading into this season with Cam Knowles in charge, I think even though he's going to shift some things with what Ramsey did to this team, I don't think he's going to abandon the long throw in. You can't abandon it when Michael Boxall is still on this team. So what went wrong for this Minnesota team? They never properly replaced their main number 9. So again, with Tani leaving, that was a huge loss. They did try to sign a couple of players in the summer, and really not a lot of them kind of turns out to be a hit, except for Triantis. Triantis was really the only guy that really hit in terms of that spot, but he was not a number 9. He was a number 6, and at least the good news is that they did finally found the right replacement that they've been looking for the past couple of years of finding the replacement for Ozzy Alonso. And now it kind of makes me a little nervous the fact that whether or not if Triandis might be staying with in this team, especially with him getting some transfer rumor and even going back to England and going to join Eric Ramsey and his team in West Brom. They still give up a lot of goals late in the games, and this has been a theme for this team, not just for this season, but really it's been a theme ever since I start following this team. It is frustrating to see how many times they have given up goals late and how hard it is for them to try to close out game. And I think maybe part of that is because the game model that they run is the reason that is the case, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. You just need to hold on possession. You don't have to go Rohit mode every single game and make it so stressful, like we've seen pretty much almost every single game this year for Minnesota play. And then, of course, the loss against Austin in the U.S. Open Cup semifinal. That was just such a gutted loss, a huge missed opportunity of getting their first ever trophy as well. So moving forward, this is where we really are getting to the meat of the action, talking about this team. So the days of Ramsey Ball is now officially over. But instead, Cam Nolan finally gets his chance to being the head coach, and I'm actually really excited about this. I know some people will say that this feels like it's a kind of a cheap hiring in terms of just getting a guy from the assistant role and just immediately promote him, even though he hasn't have too much experience in the head coaching role. Actually, I don't think that's the case. I think I do trust that Cam Nolan can do well, especially he's been with this team for a very long time. He knows the players and the culture of this team, and knowing the fact that the players have repeatedly said that they love playing under Cam Nolan as well. I think that just kind of shows you that this is an example of sometimes a team don't really need to go for a sexy hiring and think that that could be revolutionary. I mean, I know everybody, of course, talk about Wilfred Nazi and maybe he might be replacing Eric Ramsey in that spot. Well, as much as I did say before that I do don't mind if Wilfred Nazi does come to this team. I also think that I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a good thing, knowing that the system that Nazi run is just completely different than what Ramsey has run. And when you trying to alter the philosophy like that, it's gonna take times, and that might be something that Loons fans don't have patience in terms of, especially with the way that this team seems like still are having their containing window open as a resort. So as a resort, you bring in a guy that knows the team, and with Cam Nolan, I know he's gonna shift the tactics a little bit. I don't expect this team to suffer the lowest possession uh, of, of any team next season as well. I think this team might be a little bit more dominant heading into this season, and maybe that can help some players on this team thrive as well. But also, I wouldn't be surprised the fact that he might keep some of the thing that Aaron Ramsey has. The set pieces obviously is a big part. I think Cam Nolan is definitely gonna keep that, and as I mentioned, the long throw in. I don't think that's going to be going away. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to do long throwing, because it's pretty much the DNA of this team. It was a huge DNA of this team last season, and it should not be lost this season as well. The front office already hint that there's going to be 3 or 4 signing, including a designated player. So there's already been a couple of Loons player that I've heard that or a couple of players that's been linked to sign with the Loons in these next couple of weeks. I've been closely looking at the Reddit page for this team as well, and there's been a couple of rumors that have said that seems like the team is really loading up in terms of making some signings. And I will give a lot of credit to the front office. The fact that I know some people berate the front office in terms of losing some of these key players this offseason, but in many ways, I mean, they've done a good job in terms of instantly replacing them. And that's kind of where we get to the next point with this team, where I feel like, as much as a lot of Minnesota fans are saying that this team is incomplete when you look at the roster, I mean, I don't think so. If you look deep down in this roster, I don't think it is as incomplete as some people have said. Now, when it comes to quality wise, yes, I do think that they do still need some added quality, and of course, we still have that big question in the number 9 spot that in some way kind of maybe answered it with the way that if your ball doesn't work out, why not put Mamadou Dieng in the spot and see how he's going to do. But again, I don't think this roster is really in bad shape. And some of the players that they lost, some of the key players, you got the likes of Dane Sinclair losing I think this offseason going to Inter Miami. They immediately replace him with Drake Callender. And while Drake Callender, it will be a telling story whether or not if he can rediscover his old form that he has with Inter Miami. I don't think that's a bad replacement in any means of necessary. And the same thing with Robin Lud as well. They replace him with Thomas Shankalaya, another player that if he can get himself back to the form that he was before those torn ACL injury that he suffered with the New England Revolution, then you virtually just got a player that is DP quality, and they didn't even need have to pay too much to get him in a way to bring him in the first place. So with that being said, and some other addition and some U22 signings, and the way that this team maybe continue to be aggressive in terms of signing players because of the way that they are among the leaders when it comes to the total amount of GAM left in their storage space. Again, I don't think this team is in bad of a shape as some people expected. But that being said, I will also say that as much as I am trying to be very optimistic with this team, I also think that, this season, as a bonus point of this moving forward, and kind of just almost a little prediction of what I expect this team, and I might bring it up once we get to the season preview as well. It feels like this is a very boom and bust season for the Loons. I can definitely see this season can go both ways. It can definitely go great, and the great part of this season is the fact that it feels like Yoboa can recover and being the number 9, and maybe the same goes for Dean as well. Seems like Cam Nolan's and the style that he plays in that pressing system seems like it boosts some of these players as well. And Drake Calendar, of course, goes back to his old form with Inter Miami being a great shot stopper as well. So I think that this team can definitely be contending in the West again. But that being said, it could also be a bust of a season because, again, who knows if whatever Cam Nolan is doing will be good enough. And then, of course, the question in terms of the number 9 does with Inger. And then, of course, if Drake Pounder kind of fall off a bit, and even Thomas Sean Kalai kind of continue to struggle and not look the same as he was doing his DP form, yeah, I mean that could spell trouble in terms of this season as well, and especially if they do decide to let go of Cam Nolan. I mean, I would not be happy if they decided to get rid of Cam Nolan and say, well, let's give Josh Wolf a try now, because yeah, as I said yesterday in my Moving Forward series episode, I don't mind Josh Wolf being the assistant head coach of this team. He has done a pretty good job as an assistant in the past as well. I just don't want him to be the head coach of this team. I know what Austin fans have kind of warned warned us about when we got Josh Wolf, and I definitely take that warning seriously as sense. But yeah, that might be the worst case scenario if it goes that way. And again, there's just a lot of question with this team, and there's really two ways you can look at this upcoming season, and I'll probably talk about that once again when I do the season preview of this team, and especially with them starting to maybe getting some more signing to booster this team. But either way, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this moving forward series episode? I know this is such a long moving forward series episode. I'm looking at this as like 32 minutes, but I really just want to go into in-depth dive on this team and the fact that it's just been a crazy offseason with this team. It's definitely been a dramatic U-turn when it comes to the direction that this team I thought was heading into this year when it comes to personnel. But maybe things doesn't really change that much if everything goes in the right way with this transitional period that this team seems like they're heading into this upcoming season. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. If you're a Minnesota United fan like myself, what do you think is the MVP, disappointment, young player to watch? What went right? What went wrong? And moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.